All right, welcome back to Al's Home Kitchen Pizzeria. Today I'm going to try something I've never tried before. We're going to try to make pizza from this to out of the oven in about an hour. So I recommend you stick around. I'm going to have some great tips along the way, and if nothing else, I'm going to post this regardless of how it turns out. So you'll either learn a new trick how to make really quick pizza that's delicious, or you'll get to laugh at me screwing it all up. So stick around and we'll see how this goes. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we have all of our ingredients. So we're looking at 510 grams of King Arthur bread flour, 160 grams of water, and 160 grams of beer. So a total of 320 grams of liquid. We're going to add the beer in to help kind of add a little flavor since we're doing a quick rise. We're also going to put in a little glove of olive oil into the dough, 10 grams of sugar, and 10 grams of salt. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our pack of yeast. It's important that you use this Fleischmann's pizza yeast because it's made with conditioners that'll help you work with the dough faster. So we're going to go ahead and pour a whole pack of that into our liquid. And then we're going to add our sugar, which is going to help bring the yeast to life, and we're going to stir it up. Now we're waiting for that. We're going to go ahead and take our flour. So we've got 510 grams of flour, 10 grams of salt. We're going to put this on here, and I'm going to go get the lid since I forgot it, and then we'll move on from there. All right, so while we've got our yeast blooming, we're going to go ahead and add our 10 grams of salt to our 510 grams of flour. We're going to do this in a food processor. Make sure your food processor can handle this amount of weight. It should be good if you have a medium to large size one. We're going to turn it on. We're going to put it on dough. And that's just kind of mix the salt in a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and add my olive oil now. It's about 10 grams, but it's really, you can be a little bit off. It's not a big deal. Kind of goes by taste. Put our lid back on. We'll put a little more. Our yeast is getting kind of bubbly there. I'm going to go ahead, you can wait about 5 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and add it a little bit early since we're time constrained. And I'm going to go ahead and pour that right into the flour mixture. Once we got that there, we're going to put our lid back on and we're going to go for about 30 seconds. And if this goes as planned, everything should ball up nice and be ready to go. Now we're going to drop that out here. Make sure we have a little bit of flour on our surface. All right, so we're going to put some flour down. We've got this straight out of the food processor. We're just going to give it a couple of quick kneads just to kind of smooth it out. It won't take more than a few minutes, or a few seconds actually. You can really smell the beer. This is going to be interesting to see how the flavor is once this is done. So you can kind of see it's nice and smooth on top now. Just kind of push the bottom down. Make sure you've got it on a floured surface. And now we're going to let this rise for probably about 30 minutes. All right, for our pizza sauce, we're going to do something very simple and quick because, again, we're trying to make this a really quick dinner, right? So I'm going to use a can of Cento crushed tomatoes. I'm just going to pour that into my bowl. I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil. You can do this to taste. Add just a pinch of black pepper, pinch of oregano, just a pinch of red pepper flakes, a little bit of garlic, and you can add salt if you want. I don't really like my sauce very salty, but some people do, so you can absolutely add some salt to it if you want. And then I'm just going to whisk this up. And then we're going to let that sit while the dough finishes rising and while we shred the cheese. Okay, so now we've got our sauce done. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to shred our cheese. This is kind of, you can do as much cheese as you want. you'll figure out how much you get out of a block and how many pizzas and all that stuff. I'm not going to give you an exact amount that you use. I'll use probably about a third of a block of this for my pizzas. So definitely recommend that you get whole milk, low moisture mozzarella. This will shred fairly easily and it'll melt great. I'm going to show you a little bit of a trick with this after we shred it as well, so stick around for that. I did freeze this for about a half an hour before shredding it. That will make it easier to shred a little bit. It'll stiffen it up a little bit. All right, that should probably be enough for the 2 pizzas that I'm going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there for now for the sake of video editing. All right, and then we'll set that aside and then we'll play with our dough. All right, so now that our dough's been sitting here kind of bulk rising for about 20 to 30 minutes, really you just need that to go just long enough so that it kind of softens up and starts to rise. You're gonna see that it's very pliable, it's very soft, so that's gonna be really nice to work with. What we're gonna do now is we're just gonna divide it in half. And you can weigh it if you want. Usually you can kind of get a pretty good feel just by hand. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna fold it in, fold it in, fold it in, until you kind of get a nice round ball. And man, that smell of beer is amazing. And if you want to round it out perfectly, you can. It's really not that important. We're going to do the same with the other one. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put those in some greased bowls. Just going to kind of spin it around a little bit, let it get some oil on it. And then we're going to cover those and let those sit for about another 10 to 15 minutes, and then we're going to pop them in the oven. All right, so now we're going to see how this all comes together. So we're at about the 40-minute mark of when we started this process. So I'm ready to spread out the dough. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to get my pizza peel. And if you've seen any of my other videos, you know that I'm a strong advocate for using semolina flour instead of bread flour or all-purpose or even cornmeal. It really works well to keep it from sticking. It gives you a lot more work time on the peel. So I'm gonna go ahead and spread that there. I'm gonna go ahead and take my dough ball here. It's not gonna look like it rose a lot, but you'll be surprised what it'll do once it gets into the oven. So I'm gonna let that fall out. I'm gonna put it in some flour here just to kind of coat all the sides. Make sure I've got some flour down on my surface. And now what we're gonna do here is I'm gonna usually start by just lightly pushing down with my palm a little bit, just to kind of spread it out. I don't wanna push down on the edges because I want there to be some crust. And then I'm just gonna kind of slowly kind of push along the edge here. I wanna make sure that I form that edge. Once you've got your edge nice and formed and it's kind of starting to loosen up here a little bit, I'm going to take it and just kind of slap it back and forth a little bit. That'll get the excess flour off, and it'll also start to relax the dough. Kind of spin it each time you throw it. And then I'm just going to start putting my knuckles under it, and I'm just going to slowly spread it out. This is going to take a little longer than my normal dough does because it hasn't risen as long, but it's still fairly well able to spread out. Starting to loosen up nicely now. I'm just gonna let gravity do its work. I'm looking for close to a 16-inch round. I think I've got that there now. I'm gonna go ahead and spread that out on my peel. You can see how thin it is. That's okay, it'll crisp up nice in the oven. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take the sauce that we made. We're gonna put 1 scoop of that in the middle, and then we're just gonna slowly spread it out until we get out to the edge. You don't want it to be too heavy in the middle because it will kind of get soggy. It'll all kind of incorporate there as it bakes. I like to go pretty close to the edge It's entirely up to you how you like your pizza. Nice smell of garlic there from the sauce. All right, so now we've got our sauce. I'm gonna normally take a little bit of grated Romano cheese and just kind of sprinkle that on the sauce before I put the other cheese down. And then we're gonna take our freshly grated mozzarella. And we're going with just a straight cheese pizza today. You can add whatever toppings you want. For today, like I said, for simplicity, I'm just gonna go with cheese. All right, so it looks like we got that spread out pretty good. Now, before we go to the oven, we definitely wanna make sure that this slides on the peel. You can see it moving back and forth. That means that we're not gonna stick when we go in the oven. All right, so here's the trick I was talking about earlier with the setup of your oven. You definitely wanna use a stone or a steel, but I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna use both. So let me show you what I do here. So I put a steel kind of down in the middle, and then I put a stone on top. What this is gonna do is it's gonna kind of duplicate kind of the space that you would have in a pizzeria oven with the kind of low ceiling space there. And it's also, the stone on top is gonna maintain the heat on top, which sometimes when you cook with a steel, the top doesn't cook as fast. This should even that out and we should get a great pizza. So now we're just gonna kind of work this in. And there we go. Now we're gonna wait about 5 minutes, 6 minutes, flip it if we want to, and then we'll give it another couple minutes and we'll be done. Okay, here we go. Not too bad. Not sure how the crust is gonna be yet. It looks like it came out nice and crispy. Good test here is you can pick that right up, it doesn't flop. You can see how nice and brown the bottom is. So we're gonna go ahead and slide that on here, and let's listen for the crunch when we cut this. Here we go. Yeah, nice and crunchy. Now this obviously isn't going to be as good as if I made the dough longer. It does have a nice smell to it, nice aroma. Doesn't smell like beer, but you can kind of smell the little bit of the yeasty flavor or smell. Not too bad. Not as airy as I would normally get. If you stick around, I'm going to make pizza tomorrow that's had the dough rise for 3 days. I think you'll see a huge difference in how the crust comes out after being there for 3 days. But not bad. Not too floppy. I can fold it. See the bottom. We'll give it a taste test here in a minute after it cools down and see how it goes. It's got a nice crunch to it and very good flavor. For an hour, this is by far not my best pizza, but it's pretty darn good.